Tuesday, once again, today we're talking about a recent uptick in moped accidents out on the roadways. Attorney David Aylor, certainly an easy rider when it comes to the courtroom, here to weigh in. So, Attorney David Aylor, please tell me a little bit. First of all, there's a difference between a moped and a scooter that people need to know about.
Yeah, the main difference is it's going to be how big the engine is on the actual moped compared to the scooters. You're going to have the 50cc on any of the mopeds that are not supposed to go over that certain mile per hour. It's actually 30 miles an hour that a lot of them can go, but they're not supposed to go over the 25-mile-an-hour mark.
And there's different licensing procedures as well for those scooters versus mopeds.
Correct, and you see a lot of those in the here in South Carolina, but what's important to understand is it's just the basic moped that you don't have to have a license for it. If you have a driver's license, or if you have a driver's license, it's only been suspended within the last year.
So it would seem to me that that was probably the cause of this uptick in crashes. More people are getting mopeds, and more people aren't really, trained on how to operate these vehicles.
Well, there's a couple different things to look at. One, first of all, a lot of times you hear that the only people that have mopeds are people that have had alcohol-related incidents and lose their license. While that may be true to some degree, those are some of the riders. You also have a lot of other people that are riding them, young people, people just in general that are trying to save money for gas.
Fuel economy, absolutely.
Yeah, and so it is not just people that have gotten arrested and charged with driving under the influence or convicted. A lot of times it really is, students, people like that around the peninsula looking for places to park. But what happens is, yes, there is no formal training. So if you have a driver's license, for instance, if you or I went out right today, we could go get a moped and get right on the road with it. In fact, you can even be 14 years old and get a moped. But with that being said, a lot of times, unlike a motorcycle where you're going to get your permit and then your license before you're fully regulated on the roads, people will just jump right on them. And unfortunately, that does cause some problems with the moped drivers themselves. On the other side, of course, too, the difference between a moped and a motorcycle, which people probably don't think about often, but is the noise. You can hear motorcycles coming up. A lot of times that's part of their awareness. With mopeds, it's not going to be as loud. So you have people a lot of times get cut off, get hit. I've represented plenty of moped drivers that the person just simply didn't see them.
It's a very interesting thing. And of course, you don't have to wear a helmet with either a motorcycle, a scooter, or a moped, but that's got to cause some of these problems as well.
Right. Of course, anytime you don't have a helmet on, the chances of actually having fatal head injury or just injury at all is much worse in regards to when you're actually getting hit and coming off of it, particularly if somebody's coming up behind you, or if it's a situation where you're getting cut off, you're getting thrown off the moped. One thing that's important is more and more we're starting to see people finally wear a little bit more reflective gear when they're on the mopeds, wear things like helmets, pads, different stuff like to protect themselves. But of course, it gets hot here in the summer in Charleston, so sometimes that lessens down when it gets a little hotter, and you see people riding, which would be a little bit unsafer, simply because of the road conditions.
Sometimes you see these mopeds, let's say on the Ravenel Bridge, other bridges that are pretty high up there. Are they allowed to indeed ride on the bridges?
They are allowed to ride on the bridges. Most often, if you talk to folks in the moped industry, they discourage that. Unfortunately, some people have no other choice if that's the way they got to get around. So you just always want to watch out for the moped riders. And unfortunately, for the people on mopeds, they often get a bum rap when it comes to these wrecks. I know I've had a couple myself where they'll say, well, the moped didn't have the lights on. Well, the moped did have the lights on. It's just because it's a smaller vehicle, you may not have seen it. That doesn't take away the fault from you at all. And so we've had accidents on the Ravenel Bridge. We've had accidents in other places. It was simply an issue of the driver of the motor vehicle not seeing that person. We're doing a lot of work here in the state, working with motorcycles, mopeds, and scooters for people just to pay more attention. But of course, that gets us into a whole other issue with text messaging, playing on the radio, things like that, which cause a lot of problems and cause a lot of wrecks for mopeds and motorcycles alike.
Absolutely. Attorney David Aylor, thank you so much for your time and the insight. We do appreciate it as always.
Thanks
Stay with us. We got more Low Country Live coming back in just a moment.